This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Geraint Harris, the Managing Director of Altamin Limited, listed on the ASX with the ticker AZI. So hello Geraint, welcome to Stockbox. How are you?
Very well, thanks Mark. Nice to talk to you.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. So I noticed that you're really into battery metals, the next generation of base and battery metals production located in the heart of the EU. So I wonder if I can ask you first of all to start us off by just introducing the company, giving us the high-level overview, a bit about the projects and really what you're all about.
Sure thing. Okay, so we've got a suite of assets in Italy, which is, as you said, the heart of the European Union, and it is a very industrialized area where we're working. So with a high skill base, a lot of inbuilt infrastructure, close to ports, and also we're close to the smelting centres of Europe. So we've got 9 smelters within about 800 miles of the zinc lead project. So we're looking to produce a domestic, high quality source of zinc concentrate and lead concentrate with almost no impurities in it, so much cleaner than you can get from almost anywhere else in the world. And we also have a battery metal project, which is cobalt, nickel, silver, copper, which we're looking to explore, and that is obviously in the heart of the gigafactory boom generation of new factories. And our whole thesis is to look at historical brownfield sites where mineralization has been extracted in the past with high grades, but no modern exploration has been applied to those areas, and look at those areas and explore them and then bring them up the development curve to be Europe's next generation of base and battery metal production facilities.
I find it interesting, the cobalt in Italy. I know cobalt, the famous place for cobalt is the DRC, and there's some controversy around the practices over in the Democratic Republic of Congo and how these companies are going to source, ethical cobalt. So cobalt in Italy, that does sound unusual to me. Has there been a lot of historical exploration for cobalt in Italy?
There's been historical mining, but it was mined for a very different purpose. Cobalt in Italy was mined, and it was a very important source of production for the pigment. So pottery in the past, I think Spode, Denby, Wedgwood had a blue dye applied to it, and that was sourced from cobalt metal. So this project was mined in the 1760s through to about early 1800s. And then it was a bulk sample was taken in 100 years after it closed in 1920, which came back showing what looks like a cobalt equivalent grade of somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4% cobalt equivalent, which is obviously very high grade compared to the DRC, which averages about 0.2% cobalt. So no exploration whatsoever has taken place. The old mine was just following outcrop on the surface, and what we're interested in doing is looking that outcrop came from somewhere, so drilling ahead of and around and below these working areas to find out the source and the extent of that cobalt mineralization, because really they just scratched the surface in the mining.
Okay. How important is it, do you think, that there is a EU supply of cobalt going into the supply chains for electric vehicles and the battery movement? And I'm sure I read somewhere in one of the announcements, I think it was a recent, maybe your finals, or I think it was from the chairman's address, where it sort of alluded to the fact that maybe the share price performance was linked to scepticism around developing mining projects in Italy. So two questions there. How important do you think it is to have an EU supply chain of these minerals? But also, what would you say to people who are a little bit skeptic about developing mining projects in Italy?
Well, on the first question, I think the importance of not only battery metals but also base metals, I think it's never been more important in Europe. Take magnesium as an example. Up until 2000, a large portion of Europe's supply of magnesium, which is used in the aluminium processing and other uses, was sourced domestically. Now 95% of that comes from Asia. That the supply and the price of that is hampering European industry. So there's a huge focus now on sourcing sustainable, stable sources of base and battery metals for Europe. Same for the States. Zinc has just made for the first time the US critical minerals list. We've got, and that's backed up by the fact that, a couple of days ago, Europe has announced its global gateway funding from the EU, which I think is, over 300 billion euros to basically fund industrial projects, some of which will be, mineral and mining, no doubt. Now, skepticism about Italy is interesting because, Italy's had a long history of mining, but it just so happens that, many of those mines, were still in operation. So we've got a large industrial minerals sector for mining in Italy. There's over 2,000, active operations right now across the span of those industrial minerals. However, there aren't any metal mines. So that's a function of the last metal mines, and there were about 25 significant base metal and precious metal mines in Italy's recent history. They were owned either up to the First World War, up into the 60s, and commodity prices caused them to close. Wasn't really a focus area. Some were owned by the state, and the state decided to move out of metal mining and into oil and gas. Became ENI of today. So really, it's just an overlooked opportunity, but by no means is mining and mineral extraction, a strange occupation in Italy today.
Okay. Well, let's have a little bit of a deeper look into the projects then. Let's stick on the battery side of the projects, the Punta Corner project. Whereabouts are you in the development of this project then? This is
exploration. So we're going to be commencing a drilling program there this summer. Basically, as soon as we can get a contractor mobilised to site, we're expecting to have our permission to drill, Q1, Q2, 2022. So very soon, and then we'll be. We've got a campaign of holes which are actually, very efficient short holes, which we think are going to give great bang for buck to basically drill through a series of stacked parallel veins that have been indicated by all our reconnaissance to date. So the work that's gone into date has been, mapping, surface mapping plus underground of where those mineral veins were, collecting surface samples. Some of our samples are, 5-6% cobalt. But as I said, I think, 1.2 to 1.4 cobalt equivalent is probably going to be, that's what the bulk sample showed back from 1920, which is, I think, probably the most robust sampling, that any project could do would be a 50-ton bulk sample. And so we're very excited about that, Mark, because, obviously that gives, that is very much a fresh field, no exploration, but, existing mining. So obviously there was mineral there and it had to come from somewhere. And we think that's going to give our shareholders, huge upside exposure to, what's not only a growing sector, but also, the commodity price of cobalt has started to take off again. I think now today it's about $69,000 a ton.
Okay. So you say you're quite excited about that. Have you, I don't like to ask about expectations. It's a very dangerous thing to the expectation management in this game. But what is the purpose of this initial drill program? Is it really to give you the first impression that what might be here, and that will then lead on to further exploration, or are you hoping for some surprises maybe?
Always hoping for surprises in the exploration game, but we and that's what we're planning to give. But we're also realistic. So what we're doing is as I said, each drill hole is drilling through multiple veins. So we're giving each hole the best chance of success, and that can obviously lead to surprises, because if we get more veins accumulating, splays, for instance, off the main veins, that has significant opportunity to thicken up the mineralization. Historically, the veins were mined between 1.2 and 2 meters wide. And, the previous miners, they were just having to accommodate a man's body in the excavation. So they had no need to make it wider than, probably 0.6 of a meter. The reason it was that wide was because they were extracting mineralization. And then but what do we need to find, really? I mean, if a small resource as an initial would contain huge value at that project. So the bar on what an economic mine would need to have is not huge. So, for instance, a 2 million ton resource would give you an in situ value of approximately $1.5 billion.
Okay.
So we've got a very high in situ value we expect.
Okay. Well, let's look at the other project then, the Gornosync Project. This is slightly more advanced, isn't it? You have a scoping study with some indicated and inferred resources, is that right?
Yes. So, that is actually significantly more advanced. That was mined up until 1982. Was when the mill shut down and all operations. Probably the real mining finished in about 1980. And it was owned by a state company that basically just pulled out of metals, globally. So that was the reason for the mine shutting down. What we've been focused on is building resources. So we've got a 7.8 million ton initial resource on Gorno, which has got strong zinc and lead grades, and currently 23% of that is in the inferred. So it's quite a small proportion of inferred resource in there, which can be drilled out from current development with a small amount of drilling, which we'll be looking to do early next year.
Okay, so some things to look forward to for investors then: drilling at the Punta Gorno project next summer, and further drilling at Gornosync early next year.
Yeah, and really with Gornosync, what we've defined so far is just a start. We've got a 7.8 million ton resource, and our exploration target, which really just surrounds that resource, is 17 to 22 million tons, which is that's about 35-40% of our license. So we've got a mineralized trend which extends in excess of that for at least 8 kilometers. So we really think Gorno is a huge growth prospect, and what's quite special about it is the quality of the concentrate that mine can produce will be one of the highest grade and highest purity or cleanest concentrates available anywhere in the world. So something very valuable for domestic European zinc and lead supply.
Okay. Well, Geraint Harris, the Managing Director of Altamin Limited, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.